Welcome to Arby's Kitchen Talk, and thanks for checking us out tonight. And I am extremely excited to have wonderful folks here with me at the table. So, welcome to each of you.
Mhm.
We've got Pastor Tim, and we've got Hank Stevens and his wife. They are just happen to be related to me, and we have Valerie and Frank Chase, and I'm so glad that you're here. And I have been looking forward to this talk. And
Yeah.
I look forward to most of the talks, but this one is really one of my favorites because when you talk about successful relationships and marriages that have been able to work through difficulties, that speaks
Uh-huh.
volumes. It speaks volumes, and it lets those know that those who aren't engaged in a relationship that it's possible to work things out and to live a happy life. For those who weren't as successful, it's encouragement for us to know that there's always another opportunity, but we can learn from some of our mistakes and from those who have been successful. And so that's what I'm hoping will be accomplished tonight. You are couples who have real stories, real lessons. You're full of wisdom and inspiration, and you've obviously done the work. And so I want to get right into this because I've got a lot of questions, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through them all, but I want to try to do that. So let's get started. What I'd like for you to do is just briefly talk about yourself, how long you've been married, and one word, just one word that summarizes how you've been able to keep the meal from spoiling.
Mm.
All right. So our topic is the silent rub, right? What's spoiling the meal? So a little bit about yourself and how long you've been together, and one word, just one word that describes how you've been able to keep the marriage from spoiling. All right. Why don't we start with Pastor Tim?
Hi, so my name is Pastor Tim.
You do.
I've been with my wife for 17 years. We've been married for coming up on 12 next month.
Okay.
What's been keeping our marriage together besides God is
Mhm.
communication.
All right. All right. I heard that. Okay. Um,
Mhm.
Anita and Hank, go ahead.
We've been married for 12 years and we've been together for 12 years and 2 months. Yeah, it was a quick courtship. Um, However, we would probably say, I think you would agree that the one thing, in addition to what Pastor Tim said in regards to God, um, trust.
That's good. That's good.
Okay.
Communication and trust. Okay. Valerie.
So I'm Frank. That's my wife, Valerie.
Uh-huh.
We've been married 20. Well, Val likes this. What?
45 years.
Well,
He's about to.
I know.
It's 20. I'm putting it up 20 years. I won't
Actually,
put it.
actually, we met in 1980.
80.
We got married in 81, but I count 1980 as part of the whole thing. That 1 year, I want that too. So that means we've been married 26 years.
45.
I mean, I don't know why I keep saying 20, 45 years, but I say 46. And the one word that would describe us, because like any other business, things fail and you have to try again, is resilience.
Mm.
Resilience.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So we've got communication, trust, and resilience. And I would love to tell me why communication was, and I may be going off the script, okay, but I hope
Okay.
okay. So what happened that communication kept it together for you?
Well, it's just important to be in tune with one another, right? And if you're not in tune with one another, um, it's really hard to just figure things out, right? The thing about marriage is just because you're married doesn't mean that you don't change, right? We go through different seasons in life, different problems, ups and downs. And if you're not communicating, where you're at, it's really going to be hard.
Mhm.
Particularly, people have different love languages, right? Some people like gifts, Some people, just need time, right? Alone time together.
Mhm.
But if you don't communicate that, you don't know.
Yeah.
So being intentional, you got to be intentional, and you got to communicate every couple of months. I would say me and my wife kind of just do a wellness check with each other,
Uh-huh.
and I just go, hey, is there something that I'm not doing that you'd like me to do, or is there something that you need me to fix? And we just have open discussions.
Oh, that's sweet. That's real
That's
nice.
great.
That's real nice. Trust.
Mhm.
Trust. Why is that so relevant?
Well, I'd say, both we were both married before,
Mhm.
and things were really interesting. Um, I would say, and to surmise, I would say in her relationship it was her husband, and in my relationship it was me. It was me before, right? And
Okay.
so that's different. And
Uh-huh.
so I was thinking about what he said about communication, how it's important to hear. I hear her voice. I can hear her voice. I can see her body language. And when something's not right, or if I've said too much, because I'm like Peter, I got a lot to say sometimes,
Mhm.
and a lot of times. And so I had to come up with like in football, you got to make adjustments.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, uh, depending on what's going on with us, because we both have a lot of things going on. We don't have kids, but we have a lot of surrogate kids, and a
Mhm.
lot of we have just a lot going on. Some days, I'll be like, Lord, Lord, and so I bounce things off of her. She bounces things off of me. And one thing, she gets up early in the morning, like 4 o'clock in the morning. And so sometimes, that's when she wants to talk sometimes.
Mhm.
And I had to make it just sometimes most times I'll do it. Sometimes I just act like I'm asleep, but
Right. Right.
but
Okay.
I just think it's just important to watch everything, listen to everything. I mean, not to a point that it's obtrusive or anything like that, but just listen. Listen with your heart, and listen with your eyes and stuff.
Sure. Sure. All right. Uh, resilience. Tell me about that.
Well,
I'm sorry.
this time.
I thought that was my word. I got to speak. But go ahead. Go
It's the
ahead.
word for both of us. So I think resilience applies to us because there were many things that tried to take us out matrimonially, but we are still here. We hung in there even through those difficulties. And I'm sure you can imagine that over the course of 45, 46 years, there has been some stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of that stuff tried to take us out, tried to take our marriage out. But we were able to get beyond all of that stuff and be here now. And the thing is, the marriage we have now actually bears no resemblance to the marriage we entered into back in 1981 because we've changed, we've grown, and I refer to our marriage now as something the Lord made because if not for the presence of God,
Yes.
I don't think we would still be here because it is because of him and his power and his strength
Yeah.
that we were able to be as resilient as we have been.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good. 45 is a long time.
It
So
is.
you did it.
I'll just say this too. You guys don't look that old, so you
Well,
must have
thank
got
you. I
married when you were 10 or
appreciate that.
something. I don't know. You
No.
look good.
Well,
Yes.
Thank you.
Got a point there. Yes, yes, indeed. So tell me now, when life applies pressure, and this is for the men, when life applies pressure, what does showing up actually look like for you as the man, as the leader, as the head? What does it look like for you?
Mm.
Well, if I may, initially for me, when that pressure came, it was easy to run. It's like that water that comes and it hits that rock, just turns, finds another way to escape.
Mhm.
And it took a lot of growth within me to stand and deal with the pressure, whatever the pressure was, pressure that I brought to myself, brought to my own home, having to look yourself in the mirror and say, okay, listen, like I use the word resolve. This is what you want. You say you want to be in this marriage. You say you love your wife. So now you're faced with these pressures and you have to face them, attack them head on. Come sometime, put in the work. I mean, there's sometime that work issue, was sketchy. But once you say to yourself, once I said to myself, this pressure is not going to have me run away. So it caused me to grow and understand that I had to deal with these issues and not run away. And once I was able to do that, it became a lot easier.
So you gave into the fact that this was what you wanted.
Absolutely.
All right. All right.
For me, I would say it depends on what the pressure is coming from or where the pressure is coming from. Because if it's external, it really doesn't bother me that much. When it comes to things like pressure from the job or, finances, ministry stuff, I have other outlets that I do, right? Whether that's exercising or going to the gym, things like that, that I use that to deal with. But I think when it's pressure because there's conflict in the marriage, that's when you have to be intentional about resolving it, right? The Bible talks about us not letting, the sun go down in our wrath. So for me, I try to look for a way that we can resolve things quickly, and not sweep it under the rug, right? Just to say, all right, it's let's move on. Well, if you didn't resolve it, it's going to come up again later. Right.
Yeah.
So you have to be intentional about actually talking through the conflict. That looks like, for me, active listening. Because sometimes you could be distracted and think you're listening, but not quite get it. Another way is, sacrifice. Because in marriage, it's give and take. It's not about winning an argument. Just to say, oh, I won. Well, if I won, but your wife is broken, or vice versa, your husband is broken, that's not a success, right? You guys are on the same team. So it does have some sacrifice involved in it as well.
As you were talking, there are two words that came to my mind. The first one was maturity, and the second one was compassion. It sounds so easy, what you're saying, this is what you do. But to me, if you're not at that point, in that place, to do what you've just described, it's difficult. You've made it sound really easy. So how do you get there? How do you get to the place where you say, it's not about me, it's about my love for her, my commitment? How do you get there?
Well, I had some great role models. My parents have been married for over 40 years. And, I've seen a great example of what a healthy marriage looked like. If you haven't seen that modeled out, though, it really just takes God, right? Because as you mature in your faith and your walk with God, he'll teach you how to fix things. And what you got to realize, too, is, loving your spouse is really, you're supposed to love them like you love yourself, right? So when I think about the way I love myself, it really just trickles down to how I treat my wife, right? So you got to have grace for one another, because we're not always going to get it right. You got to be able to forgive. And just as much as Christ has forgiven me for as many times as I messed up, we ought to have that same kind of compassion and forgiveness for others, and particularly your spouse who is your own flesh.
Exactly.
Well, I like to say something too. Well, for me, I mean, I talk about making adjustments and things like that. And there was a period in my life that I didn't, that I ran through, I'll be specific, using drugs and things like that. So I've been in recovery for years, and I read recovery material along with, the Bible and things like teach Sunday school, all of that. And I play music. And so there are different ways, like you said, exercising, to get, I try to look at things differently. There's a different way. There's another way to look at this situation. And I ask the Lord to show me what you want me to learn. Show me what you want me to see in this. because sometimes sometimes I can't see it, but if I keep moving, keep going to do something, if I go and do something that's simple or go and do something that's totally unrelated, then the answer comes. And so I know that pressure comes, yes, it does, and it comes in different ways. So as I got stronger, as I began to realize that I didn't have to react the same way. I have choices now. I don't have to react like that. I don't have to run and hide. I don't have to get mad, angry, yell and scream, and all those kinds of things. I don't have to do that. And that's not who I am any longer. And so I asked the Lord to show me this new person. show me who you want me to be. When am I supposed to learn out of this situation?
I'm married to the new person.
And that's a good thing. I'm glad about that. Tell me about this communication. We've talked about it. Is poor communication or avoiding communication the bigger issue?
I would say avoiding communication is.
Yes.
Because at least if you have poor communication, it shows that you're at least willing to talk to the person and figure out, what your issues are. But if you're avoiding communication, you can't conquer what you're afraid to confront.
Right.
So if you're afraid to confront it, you're just going to have a lot of unresolved issues. And what's really crazy, if you think about how COVID locked us all in together in the house, with family, I think they said like divorce rates went up 200%.
That's right.
Think about people having outlets where they can go to work and really escape being away from home. Now you're home with that person that maybe you couldn't stand before, and you got a choice to either fix it and work it out, or you leave. Unfortunately, a lot of people chose to leave, but you got to have a partner that's willing to fix it and fight for it, right? Because relationships and marriages work.
Yeah. And you said something important, and I could tell that you want to say something, Valerie. Partnership, that is so important. It's you are not there in that relationship alone. There's someone else. You're partners, and I don't know that that everyone sees it that way. What do you think?
I think you're right. I think a lot of people don't see their marriage as a partnership, and they look more individualistically than as a partner as a whole. And to address your original question, I think it's a little of both, avoiding and having an ineffective or poor communication, because and from my perspective, even when someone thinks that they are avoiding communication, they are not, because communication is happening all the time, whether we open our mouth or not. It's in our body language. It's in our facial expressions. It's in those sounds or the or whatever. That is still communication. So we may think that we're avoiding it because we ain't talking. But sometimes our face does all the talking. Sometimes our body does all the talking. So I think sometimes avoidance as well as ineffective communication, I think they kind of, they go hand in hand, but I think they can be equally damaging to a couple's relationship.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about what's going on internally. And Hank, you mentioned it a little bit about your past, because we are bringing our past, right?
Yes.
Through relationships, and some of the past isn't good, and has never been dealt with.
Right.
What has your experience been like in terms of finding out that who you married, you didn't really know, because there were things about this person that were never brought to light? How did you deal with that?
Well, I'll say the fact that I I'm in social service, and I bring stuff home, and I talk about the different cases and the things that I'm exposed to. And I think that when I share some of those things, um, that sometimes it brings up something inside in me and or her, and that she'll be able to share. She'll say, I felt like something like that before, or I experienced something like that before, and I'll be like, what, you did? And that helps us, because it's not direct, it's indirect. And so sometimes um, I find that some of the people that I've worked with, there may be some unresolved things in me as
Mm.
well, and then I'm able to recognize them and talk to somebody about it. A lot of times I'll talk to her about it, and that really helps. I don't know if that answers the question, but that's what.
Yeah, so you realize at some point that there's some unresolved trauma, right? Something
Right.
that you dealt
Yes.
with,
Yes.
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
your spouse is seeing this,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
how is this addressed? How have you addressed it, or have you experienced it? And if you have, how has it been addressed?
I would like to say that we're both pretty forthright with information. However, if I happen to see something or point something out, he is so quick to acknowledge it and apologize, and even will talk about the fact that that was perhaps a behavior that he had in his previous marriage that he didn't even realize he was still doing, or be able to, on the other side of it, say, wow, I no longer do this. And we may
Mm.
have a conversation in him being able to say, when I was, because we got married so young, right out of college. And so he's able to see the difference in the things that he did prior to that perhaps were not quite so good, that behavior has changed, the mindset has changed. And then we can even talk about that, you know,
Mm.
just one thing. I just remember one time he just said something, and I just thought, wow, I never saw you that way. He says, yeah, I thought that I was selfishness. He said he was selfish.
Mhm,
I never saw it,
mhm.
but that was something that he said he brought to the table in the first marriage, and that he was really careful not to be selfish in our marriage.
One other thing, I got to tell the story. When I was a kid, I was 12 years old, and all the kids, not I had five siblings. Well, my parents allowed me to write the bills down, write out the bills, fill out the money, or we didn't have a checking account, fill out the money orders. So my dad brought his check home and stuff like that. So what I told my dad years later, they were married for 65 years. I told him years later, I said, what I got out of that was I'm not giving no woman all my money. He said, well, what about, he was like, what about the bills and all of that? He said, as 12 years old, I didn't care about that. I just made up my mind I wasn't going to give all my money to nobody.
Mhm,
And so I carried that.
mhm.
And then as I got older, I used to tell my dad he got smarter as I got older, and I realized that I can't live like that. And plus I wasn't I wasted a lot of, just wasted a lot. But as I learned that I have to, even, something, whatever is important to you, it's easy on things that aren't that important to you to concede and stuff like that. But if there's something that really, really means something to you, that's where the work begins.
Yeah. Valerie, what would you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to speak to what you were asking about trauma and unresolved trauma and how it might show up in a relationship. Because Frank and I actually dealt with this early on in our relationship, because I had sexual traumas that I had not dealt with when Frank and I first met. And he would say something or do something, and I would have a very extreme response or reaction to it. And Frank couldn't understand it. Obviously, because at that point, I hadn't shared anything with him yet. But there came a time when I was forthcoming and I shared those experiences with him regarding the sexual trauma, and he was able to have a better understanding, not just under not just to understand my reaction, but to consider what those triggers were and how he may interact with me differently based on what I had shared with him. Because when there's unresolved trauma, one way of recognizing it is when a reaction just doesn't align with whatever the thing is. You know, there'll be something really, really extreme. And we experienced that early on in our marriage. So I don't know if you want to speak to how that was for you, hon.
It was difficult, you know, because as they started to reveal themselves, there were a lot of times I felt like I was walking on eggshells. I felt I had to be very mindful and careful what I said, what I did, how I reacted to something, and understand that the accusations being thrown my way weren't me personally. I just happened to be the person there that the reaction was coming to. So that was challenging.
It was.
That was very, very challenging not to take it personal, try to talk through it if and when we had an opportunity. And I'm glad when it finally came to pass to be able to understand what was going on. And if I may, meeting Val and talking about trauma, for a long time, I was growing up thinking I had no trauma.
Yeah, that's right.
And it took a lot of years later to realize I had a lot of hidden trauma. And growing up without my father, I mean, I knew my father, but he wasn't in the house like the traditional fathers of the neighborhood. And I started to look around and started to realize what I was missing. And I was missing that aspect of my life, even though I had a man who was there in my household. Mr. McCain was his name. He passed recently. But we shared a I don't know if you call it a two-family house. So he became like my surrogate father, but I still yearned for my own. And that trauma caused a lot of distance between me and my own father. And not for the grace of God, my wife, however you want to put it, we were able to mend, and I was able to deal with that trauma for a while. Even though I was resistant, would get upset, didn't want to talk about it, didn't want to deal with it, but I'm glad we had the opportunity to discuss those things, or at least I was able to discuss them with Val and to him to a certain degree, and got over those before he passed. But it took a lot of years.
Yeah. I don't think that we recognize enough that what we've gone through is trauma. I don't think we put that label on it to explain why we do what we do and say what we say. But what I'm hearing is that it's communication and trust. Trust enough to disclose and to acknowledge that you need healing in that area. Yeah. What about some of these partners, marriage couples who are not sleeping together in their bedrooms? What about that? What's going on with that? I'm hearing it more and more that it's not important anymore. And these are couples that have been married, say 15 or more years, and for some reason, sexuality is no longer important.
Yeah.
What's going on?
I've seen that. I've seen that in several of the couples that I've been counseling. They're in separate rooms. Now, sometimes there could be a so-called legitimate reason for it. One partner snores a lot or something to that effect, or maybe one has a CPAP machine that's really loud, or it could be something like that. But in some cases, it's because there is a disconnect, that the emotional connection is lost. And when the emotional connection is lost, it's not long before the sexual connection is going to be gone as well. And they kind of drift. Sometimes it starts out when they have children, and then they put the child in the bed, and the child never leaves the marital bed. And they just kind of adjust and agree to live that way. Some of the couples that I have spoken with, I've kind of worked with them to get back into the marital bed. And I always refer to it as the marital bed because a lot of times it's the wife who's in that bed and the husband is somewhere else. And she started calling it my bed. I said, and I purposely refer to it as the marital bed because I see that as a very sacred space for couples to share a space of intimacy and connection that's supposed to be going on. But I think in this time of meanness and not we-ness, it's easy for people to think about, well, you sleeping over there and I'll sleep over here. And they don't necessarily make the connection between sleeping apart and the drift in their marriage.
Yes. Anita, I want to hear, what do you think? What do you think about that? Because it just sounds to me like that's the beginning of a downfall. What do you think?
I would agree. It is the beginning of the downfall. Um, a lot of times people will use excuses, but it may go back to the trauma in their life. It could go back to what they did or did not see when they grew up. It could go back to not having God in their life. It could go back to so many different things. And I just think it's really easy for it to happen in regard, even if children aren't involved, even if, because a lot of times people are older and they're married and then I'm going to sleep in the other room just because of, I don't want to hear the television. And then it goes from not wanting to hear the television to, ooh, I really like that bed. To so many other things.
Yes.
And part of it is because there is an underlying reason. We haven't resolved it. However, it's going to look like football. And so that's why I'm in the other room.
Right.
So I just believe a lot of times we have to really be careful. We just have to really be careful. Because I just always believe that so many things will mask themselves as something else.
Right. Now, as a woman, I've heard, and I tend to agree that there has to be a emotional connection in order for there to be a physical connection. Do you agree with that? And let me hear from the men on this talk. Do you agree, or has your wife ever said, you know what, we've got to be emotionally connected for the romantic connection to happen? Do you agree with that or not?
Oh, absolutely. 1,000%. I think any man, for the most part, can tell you, like, if your wife doesn't feel like she's in a safe space, usually just the affection goes down.
Yeah.
Right. And to your point, even we're talking about sleeping in the same bedroom, sleeping together is a part of intimacy. And I'm not talking about the physical act itself of,
Right.
intercourse or knowing each other, as the Bible
Right.
would put it. But I mean, just being there, being present, right? A lot of people use it as a form of punishment, right? When you're angry, they say, go sleep on the couch.
Yeah.
Right. So willingly, I would never, not sleep next to my wife.
Right.
And I think about even like if I'm on vacation,
Mhm.
me and my wife, we're kind of in tune where if we're away from each other, we have a hard time sleeping without each other. It's maybe just something simple like her putting her leg on me or putting her arm on me or something. It makes me feel at ease.
Yes.
So it's that closeness really that, you really crave.
Yeah.
But yeah, you both have to be in a good space emotionally. I think men are wired a little bit different. Where
Yeah.
if I'm honest, right? Let's just say even before I was married and I wasn't really living for God, I had no hard time at all just randomly hooking up with people, as you will, because for me, I would, it's easy. Oh, one night and then I never talk to you again. That's
Same.
easy for me. Most of the time with women, there has to be an emotional connection first for them to be in a place where they want to, be intimate and affectionate.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. I love that. I mean, it's not just the sexual part, it's the intimacy.
Right.
It's
Right.
close,
Yeah.
it's the the oneness that really speaks to wanting to be wherever your partner is, and
Mm-hmm.
not wanting to be anywhere else because that's not where he is, or where
Right.
she is.
Yeah, to add to that, a lot of times, when I'm watching my games or something, I'll be in the other room, or I'll just be doing something, and Val will be in the bedroom, and I might doze off, and then sometimes I get an attitude because I'm like, well, why didn't you wake me up? And at least call me into the room, or you were snoring. So, and like you said, it's not always about what we're going to do. It's that I'm there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can roll over, see that she's sleeping,
Yes.
make sure she's still breathing, just put my arm on her arm or something.
Right.
Just that
Yeah.
emotional intimate. That's a little but it's just that closeness.
Yeah.
Every now and then when I'm fall asleep on the couch, I don't mind that once in a while because I'm watching the game, or like I said earlier, the TV's too loud and maybe I got to work or something. But for the most part, there's a whole lot to say about being inches apart
Yeah.
at night when it's time when you're going to sleep.
Yeah.
It speaks volume.
May I wanted to say something because Frank and I, we've been together 46 years, but there was a period in time when we were separated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And during that time of separation, I didn't sleep in the bed because he wasn't there. I don't know if I ever told you that.
Yeah, you didn't tell me.
Yeah. I didn't sleep in the bed. I slept on the futon because he wasn't there. And it just didn't feel right to sleep in the bed without him.
Even though you was mad at me, you still didn't sleep in the bed?
I didn't sleep in the bed.
Okay.
Yeah, I was mad, all right. I sure was. But I think because I think there's just something really, really special and sacred about that marital bed. And I had real difficulty sleeping in it without him. And I didn't. I slept on the futon. So the whole time we were separated.
Well,
okay.
I like to add too. After my first, marriage, and I was single, and I hated, I hated going, waking up somewhere else. I hated that. I hated it. And I was like, one of these days I'm gonna get married. And I said, I don't want. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of waking up somewhere and then getting up and going out and getting up and going home, go to get ready for work and stuff like that. And I had all these old sisters, mothers and stuff praying for me for a wife. Every time I seen one of them, they said, you married? I said, no, y'all still praying. Y'all got to keep praying. And so when I did find one, I found my wife, and everybody was so happy for me because I was just saying I hated being single. I didn't want to. I would reach over and nobody was there. I just didn't like that. So that is one. It's intimacy, and it's one valuable piece of the relationship. That's really valuable to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that when that starts to fetter, the red flag should. Let's talk about financial infidelity. And I'm sorry about the replay. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Hiding debt, secret purchases, separate accounts without transparency. That's a cocktail for disaster.
It is.
Why do you think that exists in the first place? And secondly, how should couples see finances in their relationship?
Well, if you're talking about secret accounts and hiding debt, that screams of lack of distrust. Because like me and Val have separate accounts per se. Then we have the household account, but we both are aware of what's where.
Right.
In the event something is needed to cover something else, we can go to each other. So once you start hiding something, that's a lack of trust. You're being secret about. I mean, as long as I don't have any debt Val doesn't know about, so I don't know how you can hide debt.
Well, people do though.
Well, I guess in a marriage, because money's going out to take care of that hidden debt. So again, it's just about a lack of trust if you're hiding stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Plus, I'm really nosy and I ask a lot of questions. Ask a lot of questions. Yeah, and I think when those questions can be answered honestly, and when there is a degree of transparency in the relationship, you can avoid getting to the place where there is that financial infidelity. But I think you were also asking about how couples should handle their finances. I think that every couple has to decide for themselves what works best for them. Some couples have just one pot and that's it. Some couples, like Frank and I, will have separate and then a pot for the household. But I think everyone has to decide what works best for them as long as there is equal access to whatever those pots look like. Because I think everybody should have access to everything as long as you trust the person. Because if you are afraid or reluctant
Yes.
to give your spouse
Yes.
access, that speaks to a deeper issue
Mhm.
that ain't got nothing to do with money.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead, Anita. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say transparency is important. Because I'm sure that when you were saying how could there be a secret debt? I have known someone who had information sent to a relative's house so that their mate would not have that information, and I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Because I believe, but I also believe that is it really because of your mate, or is it because it was a behavior that you saw growing up, and whether it was from your mother, or from your aunt, or from your father? Because we all know people that have said, "Don't tell your so and so that we bought this. Don't tell." So now you're telling your son or your daughter that it's okay to be dishonest in a marriage.
Yeah.
Don't tell them that don't tell them that.
No, that's yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah,
I would,
that's go ahead. Yes.
I would like to add to that too. As you said, every relationship is different, right? You have to do what's best for your relationship. And in my circumstance, I make almost double the amount that my wife makes, right? So naturally, I'm going to pay more of the bills. We have separate accounts. However, I think what's most importantly is that we have the same goal, right? Because a lot of times when you have separate finances, if your goals aren't aligned, it's going to be hard, right? Because marriage, again, is a partnership.
Yes.
So, we have goals of paying down debt. So we allocate a certain amount of money with every check that it goes towards, our house, or it goes towards, paying off the car or whatever it is. But we don't have any secret accounts at all. And I think when you do have a secret account that your spouse doesn't know about, it speaks to a lack of trust and also a lack of commitment. Because if you and I don't know if this is an older generation thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he used to hear a lot of times where women sometimes are advised, by their mothers that they should be saving something on the side in case you need to leave the man, or in case he decides to leave you. I don't think a lot of men have secret accounts. I could be wrong about that. But I feel if you already come into marriage with the intent that I need to save money on the side, in case they decide to leave, or in case I just need to escape, that to me shows that you're not in 100%.
Right. Yeah, but you're right. I think it is an older generation thing because I certainly heard it from my mother. I certainly did. And always make sure you have your own.
Right.
And even when Frank and I may have gone out somewhere, they used to call it mad money. Oh, make sure you got your mad money because, in case something happened and you got to exit stage left by yourself, you want to make sure you have enough to get home. But yeah, I certainly did hear that from my mother. Always make sure you have enough to take care of yourself in case you end up by yourself.
Mm-hmm. So this isn't taught in your generation, Pastor Tim. This isn't you've never heard of that.
I don't think I've been taught that. I think my wife has her hand up right now. She just came home. But what do you think, baby?
My mom definitely told me.
Yeah, she just said
My
her mom
sister
definitely
too.
told her and her sister. So there you
Yep.
go. I
See,
think
Mhm.
that's something that's passed down for the most part, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that it's because of the stories that we've heard of real life experiences, right? And so, you know,
Yeah.
you want to make sure that now that's not to say that you aren't 100% in the marriage, that you're contributing to the marriage. It's just that and that account doesn't necessarily have to be a secret account. It's just money there, but
Right.
it's just in case. And I don't think that it should just be a secret account, but I just think that it is something that's been passed down. And as your wife said, yeah, she's heard it too.
Hmm.
That leads me to this question about competition in marriages.
Mhm.
And it also, I'm also thinking about the question about having these secret accounts, and how we say that it's deeper than just having secret accounts. It's because of something that's maybe a traumatic experience, or just maybe a pain or hurt or something that we've experienced that didn't sit well with us. I think that that's certainly the case, but I think this competition in marriages is certainly the result of something that has happened either in our childhood, or it expresses a lack of perhaps commitment in a marriage. What do you think about this? What do you think about the competition and the envy and the
Yeah.
jealousy that's going on in many marriages?
Yeah. I guess it could be a thing. I'm having difficulty wrapping my brain around being in competition with your partner, because it's like I'm competing with myself. Because if we're supposed to be one, how do I compete with myself?
Right.
Unless I'm attempting to get better at something, but I would imagine maybe there are couples that do compete. But if that is the case, I would think that it's not necessarily about the thing over which they are competing, but something else that's underneath the competition between the husband and the wife. Because I can't even imagine what that might look like.
Right.
Right.
Pastor Tim, what do you think?
I think really it's only competition when you can't celebrate each other. And that's really an ego issue, right? If you see your spouse winning or improving in areas that maybe you've been trying to improve in, or they're doing better occupationally than you are, or financially, whatever the case, educationally, and you can't celebrate that person, then it becomes competition.
Right.
I think it's important for us to push one another, right, towards whatever our goals are. And I will say that my wife has been one of my biggest supporters, not only, occupationally, but I would also say in ministry as well. At
Mhm.
times where I kind of didn't want to do ministry, she pushed me to go deeper in my relationship with God. Um, so yeah, we're to complete each other, not compete.
There you
Yeah,
go. That's it.
yeah, man.
Not compete. We're going to try to bring this to a close, but let me just ask a few questions on building something better and completing one another as opposed to competing. What does doing the work mean to you? We've heard that expression all the time. If you want a marriage to be successful, you got to do the work. What does that mean to you?
Well,
What comes to my mind is kind of simple phrases or simple words. What it looks like: being willing to say you're sorry, recognizing your mistakes,
Mhm.
humbling yourself,
Yes.
and understanding that, like I said, it's not a competition. We're in this for the long all. And always, like you said, trying to support each other. So those things come to mind for me when you say putting in the work.
Pastor Tim, what would you say?
Yeah, putting in the work is just showing up. Be willing to stick with it, be dedicated and committed to one another. Because
Yeah.
it's easy to just give up and say, I'm done with this, right? But putting in the work, you really have to, again, show sacrifice and dedication, and be willing to really submit to one another.
I believe part of
Yeah.
that commitment is willing to be uncomfortable, because you're going to be uncomfortable. You're going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Recognize that it is not about you all the time. It's not necessarily how you feel and what you want. You might want it, but it's not what's best, or you might be selfish. So we just have to recognize just what you were saying in regards to not understanding that you're not always going to be right. It's not always going to be what one might consider fair. It is about
Right.
your mate. It is about making sure that you take care of them, and as long as you're taking care of them, I always believe that God will make sure that you are being taken care of.
That's good.
Yeah. Can I add something to what our sister Nita just said?
Yes.
But you used the word uncomfortable, and I think that some couples, some individual couples and partners struggle with that whole concept
Yes.
of being uncomfortable. But I think that it shows a level of maturity, because I think that learning to exist in a space and be okay with some level of discomfort or uncomfortability is part of the maturation process,
Yes.
because we don't mature with easy. Sometimes the maturation process, whether it's individually or collectively in a marriage, comes with a level of discomfort. And I think that that is the time when we really, really need to dig in and tune in and lean in, and don't use the D word. Take that off the table. When something might be going awry in the relationship, that's not the time to cut and run. I think, from my perspective, and I ain't saying I'm right, but I don't think that's the time to cut and run. That's the time to explore and try to figure out, how did we get to where we are? Why are we in emotional pain? Why are we disconnected? What has happened over the course of time that led us here? So let's figure it out. Let's not leave. Let's figure it out, because you can spend time working together. You can divorce in a couple of months. You ain't got a divorce right now. You could do that any old time.
Right.
But if this is the person that you say you love and you believe they love you, then I believe it's worth putting in that work and putting in that effort, even though it may seem hard sometimes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's good. Go ahead, Pastor Tim.
Well, one last thing I was going to say, how we talked about, traumas and, experiences. One big lesson that I just had to recently learn is empathy, right? Because I think a lot of times, due to the nature of my work, I used to be a customer service consultant in sales and billing, right? And used to hear customer stories all the time where they would come in and tell you what the problem is. And I would kind of just go on autopilot, and I would say all the right things. I'm sorry to hear that you have this bad experience. But the thing is, are you actually putting yourself in that other person's shoes and understanding where they're coming from and sincerely mean it? Right? Because sometimes we get so good at just going through the motions. And my wife had to check me and say, okay, I hear you telling me this, but do you actually see where I'm coming from? How would this make you feel if this was you? And I had to take a step back and actually think about that and say, do I really get it? Right. So I think that makes it a lot easier to understand where we can say, even though maybe it sounds silly to me, or I don't understand why they act that way. If I have the same experience that they had, how would I act? And I think that makes it a lot easier to kind of understand where you both are coming from, and also make a path forward of how you guys can both walk together.
Yes, that's good. Good.
Mhm.
One last question before I ask you to give your suggestion and recommendation for couples that may be struggling. What did you have to unlearn as a couple?
Mm.
I'll say
That's a
how
lot.
I respond. I had to learn a different way of responding. I just can't respond a certain way. I respond the old way. I have to look for different ways to respond. Um, like we've said, empathetic listening. Yes, we have to listen with our hearts, and that's really important. And I'll just be on myself that, hey, I can't respond the way my first impulse. I just can't do that. Nope, that's not gonna work. Don't do it. Don't, Hank, don't do it. And that's just goes over into counseling and everything. That we, as you hear so many things, so many problems, and I mean this world is just full of problems, and sometimes you kind of take that on. You feel it anyway. And there's a lot of things that we can't do anything about, but God can. He can do it.
Yeah. Anita, you want to?
I guess I'm just thinking. I've never known how to argue, or to disagree, and that was a challenge for me because I didn't know how. In my previous relationship, I was married to someone that could be angry for months. And so learning how to not be, please put your hand down, sweetie. Learning how to not just close up, because I was used to not talking because they didn't talk. And so early on, we talked about how to disagree because I didn't see it growing up. I grew up in a single parent household. However, my grandparents were there with us, and I never saw them get upset. So I never saw a couple be angry or have a disagreement. So I didn't know what to do. So for me, I'm just going to be quiet. I'm not going to say anything. Well, that's not going to get you anywhere. And so for us early on, because I knew I had that and I knew what baggage I may have been carrying from the previous relationship, that was something we had to talk about. I mean, early on, to make sure that we were successful. And I guess especially for me to be successful.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Pastor Tim?
But you have comfort.
Yeah, I had to unlearn how not to think things were mine per se, and I make it simple. My wallet. I had to unlearn that. Okay, it's your wallet, Frank, but if your wife wants to go through it, it's okay. It's your phone. It's your phone, Frank. But if your wife wants to go through it, it's okay.
Wow.
I struggled with those simple things. The phone was another issue why I was struggling because I was running the streets, didn't want to get found out. But something as simple as the wallet, I was holding on to that because it was mine.
Yeah.
And you need to ask me to go through my wallet or go through my pants pocket or whatever. And as I say it now, it sounds so funny, but I really went to battle for that. Had to unlearn that it is now ours. I mean, it can be some respect. Hey, babe, I need to go through your wallet. Do you mind? But don't just, even as I say it, I'm still stuck saying, well, don't just grab it. At least ask me. I'm going to say yes. But go ahead.
Okay, I think similar to what Anita said, I had to unlearn shrinking because I grew up in a household where there was a lot of physical abuse. And I saw my mother shrink, and I had to unlearn that that is what a woman does, is shrink. And I had to learn to have a voice. And sometime my husband might regret that I have a
Oh
voice
Lord.
because I use the
Now,
heck
man.
out of my voice now.
It's long now.
But it took me a long time to get to the place where I understood that, yes, Val, you do have a voice. Yes, Val, you can use that voice. You don't have to shrink. You don't have to hide. You don't have to try to disappear and make yourself so small that nobody notices you. And I had to unlearn. I had to unlearn all of that because of the household I grew up in.
Yeah. It's amazing. Pastor Tim.
I would say I had to unlearn just expectations of how I expect somebody else to react, particularly her. Things that I may not see as a big deal, right? It may be a big deal to her and vice versa. But I don't have the right to tell her that her feelings are invalid, right? Or that she
Mm,
shouldn't have a response
Yeah.
because our experiences growing up are two different experiences.
Yeah.
Right.
mhm.
So I can't tell her, hey, you got to react this way,
Right.
or you
Right, right.
overreacting, because you know what may sound something very small can be something that's actually really big,
Yeah.
and that's where that empathy, I had to learn that part of it.
Good. So good. This has really been great. What one piece of advice would you give to couples that may be struggling at trying to be communicative and trustworthy and
Mm,
want to be resilient? There are couples that really want their relationship to work, but it's tough. So what would you tell them um,
mm.
about staying together and fighting for each other?
Well, I would say a couple of things. First, I would say, remember what brought you two together in the first place. Remember why you fell in love with him, why you fell in love with her. And if you get to a point where the two of you cannot work it out among yourselves, with the two of you and God, get help
Yes.
because help is available.
Yes.
We don't have to suffer through whatever is going on and struggle through and fight through on our own because help is available. Whether it's a counselor, whether it's a pastor, whether it's a relationship coach or a trusted older mentor couple, help is available. You don't have to try to figure it out all on your own.
Mhm.
Mm.
That's good.
I would say, hold on. Everything's not going to be resolved today.
Mm,
You always have tomorrow and the next day if you're willing to
mm,
continue to work. And if you hold on tight enough, you'll be able to pull yourself through.
yeah.
That's good. That's real good.
I would say sit down and have an open discussion with one another. Um, Talk about your feelings, where you are, what your expectations are with one another. Get to the root of your issues,
Mm,
and then
Mhm,
work on a way
mhm.
that you can fix them.
yeah.
They're not going to fix themselves overnight, and it may take time, but be intentional. Like we talked about showing up. That's
Mhm.
where instead of isolating yourself and being secluded,
Yeah.
and finding it easier to just coexist in a house that there's no love, be intentional with working on it, right? And maybe that's putting down your social media and spending time just enjoying each other's company,
Yeah.
but get back into a place where you're actually enjoying being around each other. And I would say pray together too.
Mm,
That's
Yes.
big,
Yes.
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 right? The Bible talks about a threefold cord not being easily broken.
Yeah.
So, you
Right,
know,
right.
pray with one another.
That's really critical.
Yes.
Oh,
It,
that
it is.
speaks
You
volumes.
ran out of ink?
Yes, Anita.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Forgiveness and letting
Mhm.
go. And when I say
Mm.
letting go, I always make a joke about holding on to um, something that happened in the second grade. Let it go.
Mhm.
If it happened, you all resolved it. And if you resolved it, if you truly resolved it, it should not come back up.
Okay.
It should not come back up.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
if you didn't, and it does come back up, then you haven't forgiven, because we always talk about something can resurface, just don't have a cup of coffee with it.
Okay. That's good.
You glaze over it,
Mhm.
mention it, and it's done.
Okay. Good. Forgive and let go.
Mhm.
Would you have
My
anything to
husband's about to lose his mind because the basketball game is
Oh,
on. And
How'd
he's
you
written me
know?
about 5
is
notes.
that why his body's turned this way? Like,
How did you know?
Listen,
Gonna
listen,
watch
I'm
the
a
Nets play.
diehard Nick fan. I'm a
Oh,
diehard Nick
okay.
fan.
I feel
Okay.
sorry for you, sir.
All
I
right.
feel sorry for you. And it's okay.
All right. Well, listen, I have enjoyed your responses. This has been awesome. Thank
Thank
you
you so
so
much.
very much for being on Kitchen Talk, and continue to pray. All right.
Yes.
Yes.
And to trust one another and communicate and stay strong. Thank you so
Amen.
much. All right.
Yeah,
Thank
everybody
Okay.
All
pray
right.
for
God bless
let's
you.
pray for
It
Amen.
was
each
Thanks for
other
wonderful
having
as
me.
well.
meeting you all.
Nice
Nice
talking,
you.
meeting
Have
you.
a
guys.
great night.
All
God
right.
bless.
Have a great night.
God bless.
All right.
Right.
Okay.
Bye bye. Thanks, Rhonda.
All right. You're welcome.
Okay. How do I get out?